You know security is hard, so let's assume we're probably gonna get pwned by noon. But if we all start to get the basics right, we might not fully get pwned until tonight. Okay, we did it, right? You're with me, Kevin?
Here.
Okay, awesome. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 7-Minute Security live stream. I'm Brian Johnson, joined by my pal and yours, Kevin, a.k.a. hackernovice from Slack. If you hang out in our Slack at all, Kevin, I'll let you introduce yourself. Whatever little or lot you want to tell the folks at home about yourself, please do.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brian.
Yeah.
My name is Kevin Gage. I work for an IT consulting company in New England. Been doing IT for 20 years or so. Started in help desk, sysadmin, networking, got into programming, security. I've done some offensive security certs, but I do mostly blue team stuff.
Yeah.
But the red team stuff's so much fun that I can't help but tinker with it. So
have you I have to know, at what point did you acquire the name Hacker Novice? Because me and everybody I know who also knows you in any way, shape, or form is like, it's not really a fitting nickname. Because I think when I first got chatting with you about stuff, I knew you had all these certs and stuff, and at some point I learned what you just shared about how like that offensive security isn't really like your day-to-day. I was just like, are you a glutton for punishment? Because you did the OSCP and then the OSCE, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I'm just like, again, I go, one of these people, I'm like, half robot, maybe. But I mean, God bless you. It's so cool that you did that. But I mean, I kind of do some of these certs because I sort of have to. But you do them. You find them fun and punishing.
I did it because it was fun. So I started getting into the offensive stuff back before Kali was Kali, back when it was still like Backtrack. And they had forums. I'd hang out in the forums so much and just keep up and just read the stuff and be like, this is so cool. I was like, wait, I can answer a lot of these questions, So I just kept up with it. When I saw Offensive Security was first releasing their certs, I was like, that just sounds like too much fun. I need to do it. So I did. Learned a ton. And I've just kind of stayed in the community ever since then. And to answer your question, the handle I came up with was back when you had the IRC channel before Slack.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I joined that, and I wanted to come up with something, and I was like, well, there's a bunch of like real pen testers in here and veteran guys. I want to be humble, right? So
Okay.
I came up with the novice thing and just stuck with it.
It's kind of stuck. Well, that's cool. Well, I really appreciate you being here. Super appreciate your work on this this tool that we're going to talk about today, called EvilFortiAuthenticator. And I'm, as we were talking about before we went live, I don't want to. It's like whenever I attend a webinar like this, it's like I kind of want to know enough of like, what is the tool about? What what does it do? But I can quickly get into the like, I want to show everybody everything, like how to install it and how this and that. So I'll just give like the high level kind of snapshot of this tool and kind of how it came to be. But I also want to sprinkle in a little bit of like, if folks that see this are like, well, I kind of want to spin this up in a lab and actually give this a dance, I kind of want to give that insight as well. So I'll just introduce it kind of by saying that EvilFortiAuthenticator, once we, which I just thought of right now, I haven't talked to you about actually making the tool live, but I'll do that and I'll put that in the show notes so that people can actually grab this. But the kind of tagline for EvilFortiAuthenticator is, it's like a regular FortiAuthenticator, but evil. And FortiAuthenticator, for folks that are not familiar, I'll just get, let's see. Yeah, my screen share is working. This is a product or a service from, good Lord. Yes. Google. I get it. From Fortinet. And if I can spell it, FortiAuthenticator. And I think it's, tell me if you think more explanation is needed, Kevin. But I feel like this is like a virtual machine you could put in your enterprise, and you could add things like multi-factor protection to your Windows logins. So in other words, if the Windows logins or the Windows systems have the Fortinet agent, people, if they're logging in the morning, they'll see username, they'll see password, and then they can also have protection through the FAC device. So they punch in their one-time, MFA token, boom, then they log in and they go about their business. Would you say that's a fair description of how you would legitimately use FortiAuthenticator?
Yeah, I'd say so. Fortinet does have a whole ecosystem of security products. They're one of the big vendors. The FortiAuthenticator can do some other things. You can run it to do single sign-on and OAuth across different applications. It can be like your VPN authentication endpoint. But yeah, the utility that we looked into was the two-factor portion of it.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the background for why we got sniffing around here in the first place. Is we were hired to do an engagement where a partner of ours was looking at FortiAuthenticator as like a solution for their customers to just help protect and put MFA on local and remote logins. And so they had this all kind of staged up in a lab, gave us access to it, gave us a workstation, kind of like you're seeing here, with both like a regular user account and a local admin account. And essentially we were tasked with look at this FortiAuthenticator server, look at a client that's pointed to it, tell us, where are there potential, security concerns, where might somebody be able to get, whatever, get access to the server config, skirt around and bypass multi-factor protection entirely on the desktop. So it was really fun because it's kind of it's a bit of an open bag of worms, right? It's just like, just look at this and put your evil hat on and try to figure ways to get around it. So what I'll show you just real quick, in case anybody that sees this does want to play with this. I can't remember. Do you remember, Kevin? Do you need, in order to get a trial FortiAuthenticator VM, do you have to be a Fortinet customer? I can't remember if.
I don't think so. I think they have a kind of a sign up form. I don't think you can just go download it, but I think if you provide your name and email, they'll get in touch with you.
Okay, yeah, sacrificing your corporate email to the demo gods, or go to whatever it is, shark lasers dot whatever. I don't know if those still work, but yeah, you can get this VM, and this is essentially the console for that. So I've got, I'm sitting here on a 10.0.7.x network, and everything is contained within it. So from the FortiAuthenticator side, it's just a VM appliance. I booted it up. Pardon me. And as you can see here, it's just a few commands to give it a static IP of 10.0.7.111, a rule to allow API and HTTP and HTTPS access. You set a default route, you set a default gateway, and that's pretty much it. So again, for those of you who are like me, who like to tinker, it's not a super heavy, you don't have to block off a day and a half just to get this thing stood up. So this is where it lives right now.
They'll do it for you too. I think they provide a cloud option if you wanted to go that route.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Yeah. Okay. So that's, again, sitting at 10.0.7.111. I'm just going to leave that window for now. I'm going to go kind of full screen on this guy. And then what I'm going to do here is I'll just show you the other piece of it. So the other piece is this agent executable. And I'm actually just going to run that really quick because that is also super simple to install. But this is the piece that's going to set up our Windows workstation. And I'll install this. I'll log out and log in quick, just so you can see that the system will be, prepared to take in a username, password, and then also a Forti token or a one-time code if we are configured for that. So yeah, the configuration comes up right away. I'm going to visit that later. I'm just going to close that for now. Let me just do a real quick, I'll close that as well. I'll just do a log off and log in just so we're that thing is fully installed, and we can see the MFA stuff kick in. So let me get back into that real quick. It should change our GUI, which it did, but it just allows us to essentially skip this. But we've got the nice Fortinet logo staring us in the face. There's my one-time code I could type in if student 1 was enrolled, which it isn't right now. So this should actually just take my login and just ignore the MFA piece. So we'll let that get set. Okay, so now let me just give you a quick tour. Let's just look at. I'm going to log into the FortiAuthenticator box. I said 111, I think, right? Yep. Oh, good Lord. Oh, maybe it's because, there we go. We'll get in here, and I'm going to do a little winter 2023, of course. It just makes it easy. And let's see. I'm not cutting off the screen too bad, am I? No, I think we're okay. Okay, so a couple settings that might be configured, and I've sort of pre-configured it to look like it might in a regular corporate environment. But if I go under, let's see, I want to look at remote. Is that under remote? I wanted to look at the LDAP. Is that authentication, remote auth servers? Okay, and then LDAP. So if I look at the settings here in our environment, which is the domain called tangent.town, this FortiAuthenticator has been set up to sync when necessary with the one DC in our environment, DC01, and sync using a account called InSync. Okay, and the password is masked, but that way we can do things like, for example, I think if I go under, let's see, is it user management, remote sync rules? I think I could sync certain groups and certain users and enroll them for tokens, right? So I could create a new group here. I'll just call it Tangent MFA. I will pick my DC. And then I'm going to do, let's see, I was going to choose just like, let's see, group filter. Okay, here we go. I'll take all the students as if, these were my employees or something like that. I'm going to use them. I'm actually, so here's where I could enroll them in different methods of MFA, right? So I could do SMS or email or a hardware token. I'm going to do none for now, just to kind of verify that the sync does work. So I'll save this, and then I will check it and do a manual sync. And it looks like that all went okay. And then I can verify that under, let's see, remote users now. There we go. So there's my student group, right? So this is where I could go in and say, yes, student 1, enforce MFA, that kind of stuff. So that's a common config you'll see. And I think I'll leave that for now. I want to come back to a couple of other things later. But so during the course of this test, we did not actually have access to any sort of admin login to the portal. I just wanted to show you kind of behind the scenes, right? This is how you can get the AD link piece going. But we started with a workstation like this with again, a limited account and a local admin account to see like, all right, if we purely just look at the client config, what kind of shenanigans and trouble can we get into? So I'm going to just go 40 and I'm going to open the agent. Now, just for kind of the sake of time, I currently have us logged in as the account that has local admin access. So it makes sense, right, that we can see this config. I believe what we found, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but I think if you're logged in as a user that does not have local admin, the Fortinet client config is pretty well locked down. Like you cannot even open this agent box. You get prompted for elevated creds. And then there's also some registry keys that I think have some API information and other stuff. Those seem to be if I recall, the permissions on those hives seemed to be pretty locked down. So you couldn't really get like sensitive config information that way either. So, so again, we're sitting here with local admin rights, which I know, right? Some people say that and go, well, if you got local admin, it's game over for anything, right? That's kind of true, but it certainly gives us much more power to have, in this case, local admin rights. Yeah.
Yeah, from what I remember, only admins could really access any of this information.
Yeah. So as we look at the configuration here, there's message of the day and all these different buttons here, but obviously under the two-factor authentication, configure button jumps out as something important. And what we're seeing here is right now, actually this must be a default setting, but the FortiAuthenticator IP is editable, so if I was going to point this to the legit server, right, I would do something like this. And then there's administrator name and then an API key. And I think this is one of the areas where you and I first got, kind of, well, let's see, you're actually able to grow facial hair. I'm not, but I kind of stroked like, you know what I mean? A mustache that I don't have to go, well, that's really interesting. And that's when you, I'll just pull it up real quick in case other people haven't heard of it. You gave the suggestion of why don't you just try, is it bullets pass view? Is that how, or bullets view pass? Bullets pass view, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I'll just run it again, just so people can see what it looks like. But will you explain again what the risk is here and how this is really can be, depending on the program, this can be sort of a fake mask to the actual values behind these bullets, right?
Yeah, this is a really common security mistake that developers will make if they're not thinking of things, from a security perspective. So they have a field here for username. They show you the username, and they have a field for password. And they're like, well, we'll store the password here, but we'll hide it with asterisks, so you can't see what it is. That doesn't add much protection, really. If you're storing the password or key or whatever secret in the front end, there's like 100 ways to just view it. You view it out of memory, use a tool like this that'll make it really easy for you, any number of ways. So as a developer, what you really want to do is just represent that there is a saved password by putting a bunch of asterisks there or whatever you want. But don't actually pull the password out of the registry and put it into that field. There's no reason to, because no one can see it anyways.
Okay, yeah, that sort of blew my mind when you shared that with me, because that makes so much sense when you explain it that way. But again, not being critical of developers, right? They're probably like, I got to code it so that it's actually,
right.
When the whole point is to mask it anyway, right? So why even,
You see the same mistake with websites a lot. Like, you shouldn't be sending secrets to the client unless they really, really need them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when Kevin and I were actually testing it, this would work. You could bring up this window, you could bring up bullets pass view, I think just do the refresh or something. And it was like, boom, username admin, API key, and then the actual key. But we're running, I think, the latest and greatest client now, right? So maybe that's been addressed. It kind of looks like it, would you say? Or is there anything else I should try here to like cough this up?
No, it's a pretty simple tool. It should just show you the info. So my guess is they patched it out.
Okay. All right. Which is, which is good. Oh, and I maybe should have said at the very beginning of this, yeah, I probably should have, just to kind of protect, I don't know, getting flagged or protect my own butt. But we went through the responsible disclosure for all this stuff that we're showing you with Fortinet, and then got the okay at the end of that process to blog and podcast and stream about it. So we're not, knock on my desk, we're not doing anything that's going to get us in trouble. Okay, so yeah, but again, it's kind of nice actually that we're masked from doing it here, because we continued back then of going, okay, well, how else could we get sensitive information like this, like this key. So I'm gonna instead of changing this to let's see, what would be the better thing to do? Yeah, here's where you would point to the legit server. But I think what I'll do is, because we could point this to some arbitrary IP, in the background, I'll get the evil authenticator server spun up. And while I do that, Kevin, do you want to talk a little bit about like kind of what led you to think about, alternate ways to capture the key and kind of what this server is doing behind the hood? Because as you know, I'm self-proclaimed code noob, and what you say is kind of right over my head.
Sure. Yeah, well, we were looking at different ways to get the API key. That was the ultimate goal at this point, because that gives you a lot of access to the appliance. We tried the bullet pass view, that worked. I took a look at the Forti client through .NET Reflector, which will give you like the .NET source code. I could see that the key was being pulled from the registry, but in the registry it was encrypted. So I'm positive that with enough time and reverse engineering, you could decrypt the key out of the registry, but that just seemed like too much work. So it seemed like the quicker way was, for this PC to communicate with the authenticator, it needs to send the key over the network. So we figured a network-based attack would be best. So we started by running man-in-the-middle proxy between the client and the server and observing the communication. And we found that the API key was encoded into the authorization header. So you could do a packet capture, grab the authorization header, decode it, get your key that way. But I thought, one, it's fun to really dig into these protocols and really examine the back and forth to make sure you understand it all the way. Maybe you can have more findings. So I figured, let's write a server that emulates what the FortiAuthenticator does and also just pulls out the secrets you want in a really easy way that you can just see them.
Yeah. That's awesome. And that's what we're seeing here. That's what I've got spun up on my separate Kali box here this is Kevin's Evil FortiAuthenticator server in listening mode. Unless there's any other background you want to talk about, Kevin, I think what I'll do is I'll point, let's see if I can just organize my windows a little better. I'll just point the authenticator away from the legit one, and I'm going to point it to .7, which is evil server. And I'm going to say okay to that here. And then I think so what I could really simply do now is just log off, log back in, and we would see a hit on the evil server. But in playing around yesterday, I think if I go into here to simulate credential exchange and just go like that and essentially pop the authentication window, we see a hit to the evil server. And it's and it's funny. I think this is just because of the default well, we'll get to that in a minute, but the API interaction doesn't fully 100% work the way a prod box does. But I think by default, the API key is set to Fortinet. So I believe this is, I believe that is the key. Normally it would be this long garbly string, right? And I think if I want to probably prove that, I imagine, let's see. Oh, maybe I would have to change it. Well, I don't know if it's actually, if that value is actually here, could I just do this and simulate again? And would that, oh, whoops, did I do? Oh yeah, I did. Okay. So again, pretend my API key was a longer string. There it is right there. And for a true hacker novice like myself, not Kevin hacker novice, this kind of like the impact of this was kind of lost on me, because I just thought, oh, okay, cool. This means what, like, interaction just to pass authentication or that kind of stuff. Oh, and I forgot to show too, your server also captures a log of all captured credentials that we can hit over the web, right? So if I go to 7.7/UI, but I think HTTPS, right? We can also see it that way. Look at that.
Yes. We'll show you any API keys up at the top. And then if anyone's actually passing one-time password codes, you'll see that down at the bottom, all the usernames and codes that it's
oh yeah,
communicate with.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so once you have that API key, I'm just looking for the maybe I don't have handy the oh, I do. I'll just throw it in chat. I've been kind of bad about I try to throw links in chat about stuff. Oh, this is probably in their API documentation. This is like specific things you can do. But there's a whole KB article about API functions and the different ways you can interact with FAC over API. The link that I sent is for it's for gleaning system information, but as you read about the other functions, you'll find that one of them is a recovery call, where in other words, you could if you're armed with the admin username and this long API key, you could essentially just dump the config of the device. And what Kevin and I found in testing is that this demo box that we have here doesn't just the API part of it does not work like a prod box does. It's like they've got it crippled in some way. But I'll just for the sake of showing you, I'll copy in just a sample command just so you can see how kind of quick and easy it is. Well, to do that, I need to learn how to copy and paste, and that's always been my strong suit. Let me try that. Just something like, hello. Yeah, it is right-click paste, isn't it? Or can I just do take 10, paste? There we go. So you could craft a command such as this, and this is right in their API documentation. They'll show you how to do this. All you need to do is replace, username, and in this case, I just have like a sample, garbage key, but we point it at the legitimate FortiAuthenticator server. We're calling the recovery function and saving the output to, in this case, a file called meow.conf, but you know what I mean? This would be fac config.conf. This is what we did at the client site, because again, Kevin and I did not have a valid credential to the server, so we had no idea really how it was configured at all. We just knew the IP address, and we had the client piece of it to play with. So once we got a hold of this, and I'm just gonna let me actually put my real. I'll just double check my work here. I don't think this is going to go.
That won't work because I think you need to encode the API key.
Oh, okay. But the structure, I think, of the of the command is right, where you would run that, and let's see. Okay, so I have a problem, but you would have that config.conf file. So kind of where Kevin and I went with that then is like, oh, cool, we've got a copy of their raw config file. Could we now take that over like we are now? Could we take that into a lab, import that config, and then kind of get behind the scenes, change the admin password, and then maybe get further in the weeds and pull out like that AD user that's doing the LDAP sync, or could we steal the email server that this device is all set to send alerts through? Because for a lot of MSPs, right, who would implement something like this, they might have one master account called alerts@7minsec.com, right? They might have all these separate tenancies with FortiAuthenticator installs, but they might use one just SMTP account to kick out alerts to say low on disk or problem with FortiAuthenticator, etc. So that's the kind of next and last evil bits of information we want to show you. But we also have a sponsor for today's session. It's our good friends at safepass.me. So, just grab a beverage for a second, Kev and friends, and we'll roll this message from them, and then we'll get back to showing just how bad it can be now that we have a copy of the legit FortiAuthenticator server config. So we will be right back. Today's episode of the 7-Minute Security Podcast is brought to us by SafePass.me. SafePass.me is the most efficient and cost-effective solution to prevent Active Directory users from setting a weak or compromised password. It's in compliance with the latest NIST password guidelines, and it's the only enterprise solution to protect organizations against credential stuffing and password spraying attacks. And boy, do we love SafePass.me. It's super easy to use. You just download this MSI file to your domain controllers, you run it, you reboot the domain controllers, and boom, just like that, you will be actively preventing your users from picking millions and millions of known weak, leaked, breached passwords. It really is that easy. And I think one of my favorite parts is that SafePass.me includes a custom word list that you can use as well. So if you don't want people to be able to pick company name 2022, company name 2023, you can do that with the built-in SafePass.me word list. But beyond that, that's about how quick you can get it up and running. So next time Active Directory users get prompted to change a password, they type in the new password they want to use, and if it's on the block list, boom, they'll be told they have to pick something else. It's really awesome. We invite you to check out more at safepass.me, and don't forget to tell them that 7-Minute Security sent you, and you'll get a 10% discount. Again, that is safepass.me. All right, and we're back. So Kevin, I forgot to mention something as we're in this situation now, right, where we're pretending we have a backup copy of the legit config, right, and we want to restore this onto the just the VM we downloaded from the cloud. I've got on the screen here. There's a Fortinet article on essentially like resetting the admin password from the VMware console itself. And one of the things you need to do that is you do need the serial number of the good FortiAuthenticator server. And in that link I put in the chat there for the system info call with the API, you can just query for that serial number and get it.
Yeah, there's a lot of useful API endpoints in that document. You can do things like pull down lists of users that are either local to the device or from Active Directory. You can pull down system information. There's a lot of useful stuff that you can just get to with the API key.
And am I remembering right that one of the goofy things was, like, I believe there was an API call to just reset a user's password, wasn't there? But we couldn't do it to the admin named account, right? We didn't know if that was a bug or, something funky. Because some people might say, why are you going through all this work of pulling down a config and you're going to bring it somewhere else? Why not just reset the admin password? But we couldn't get that to go.
Yeah, we were kind of enumerating the API at this point and figuring out, well, we've got this foothold on the device with all these things we can do.
Yeah.
Which one's going to let us on there? And this was the way that we kind of came up with.
And I think too, from just purely because this made me a little bit nervous too. I was thinking ahead going, even if we get the admin password reset and we go in there, like, yes, it's just a test environment, but still I don't want to like do some change that bricks the device or locks us out of it or something. So I was just so much more comfortable with like, well, we'll just steal a copy of the config, we'll spin it up in a lab, and then we'll pull it apart. So, so yeah, it's nice. So Fortinet has an article of just how you could, well, I think what we had to do first is use the API to restore a config onto our lab device, I believe. And then we had to come in here and use this maintainer account to hard reset that admin password, I believe. Right. And then I think we were in like we are over, well, wherever we are.
Then essentially we have a copy of their device with the password that we know, so we can log in and see how everything's set up.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So that would bring us to essentially where we are now, where it's like, okay, cool. This is a copy of the prod device, but we're sitting here in the lab. We can kind of look at how everything else is configured and see what else we can, suck out of this this config that may be sensitive. And as we looked at earlier, I think one of the first things that caught our eye was, I keep going to the wrong place. Authentication, LDAP? Is that right? No. Remote auth servers, LDAP. We were like, oh boy, this does a sync with Active Directory using an account that's specified here. Wouldn't that be kind of fun if we could get those credentials? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the way we did it was we used, they actually have a handy dandy, where is it? They have a tool, they have a built-in packet capture tool that we ran and then did a sync with to capture that credential, I think.
Yeah, we unchecked the box for LDAP S. We just turn off all the protections because it's our device at this point.
Oh, right. Yep.
And then, kicked off a packet capture in the device itself and tried to do a sync. And at that point, it sends over the credentials to try and do authentication, and you capture them.
Yeah, and what I was when I was playing with this just the other day, just to kind of recreate all this and make it happen, what I did was I just did an a netcat listener on 389, and then went to where we're normally pointed at the true domain controller, changed that to 10.0.7.7, and then I think, let's see, what did you say to shut off? Let's see, this is fine. I think I don't have, this is what we had to turn off, right? To not do LDAP S.
Right.
And then I think, let me just save that. And then let me come here again. And then I think the way we kicked off the thing. Oh, in fact, look, there it is. Yes. But in here, and I'm totally forgetting on which toolbar it's under, but they do have a built-in packet capture, so you could start the capture, and then I think we pointed at this machine or something that would kind of catch the connection, and we grabbed it right in the packet capture. But here's another way, right? There's that in sync account, and there's the password. Now in this in the where the customer had this set up, because I got excited right away. I was like, oh my gosh, this is probably set up the way a lot of these service syncs are, where they use a domain admin account to do the syncing. So I went right to right to our friend CrackMap exec and did let's see, there's the real domain controller in sync. What's the password? It's gonna be May. It's gonna be May. And I was hoping we'd see something like this, where oh, cool, there's a great way to get Insta DA. But they did a nice job of, they just had a regular user account doing that syncing. But still, right, it's foothold city if you all of a sudden have one legit, just clear text password, because it doesn't matter how strong that password would be, right? We would get it as part of that sync. That might lead you, maybe not Insta DA, but it would potentially very quickly lead you into a path to escalation. So, that was pretty awesome. And then, okay. Then I think sort of the last thing, but let me know if there's other things here, Kevin, that you want to point out. But the other bit of information that got our spider senses tingling a bit was, okay, if we look under, messaging, I think we've got this SMTP server here. Looks like we've got alerts that are sent to the mail.tangenttown mail server. Okay, port 587, and it's using this account alerts at tangent.town. So started thinking along the same lines, right? We kind of staged a fake LDAP sync to grab clear text creds. So we thought, oh, can we do a similar thing to catch inbound SMTP authentication. And I don't know if you like, I don't really know if there's kind of a known standard for a tool to do this, but I remember just Googling for evil SMTP server. And let me see, is this, and this is the one right there. Kind of built for exactly this case. So I'm just going to install it real quick. Although, yeah, I don't know. Could we, if I turned off all the security and just did a netcat listener, would it maybe
I don't think so for SMTP, because that protocol requires some back and forth. You know, you got to do the EHLO and then send like the auth request and stuff. So you need something on the other end talking back to it.
Okay. Okay. So let me go into evil SM. Oops. What do I call it? TME SMTP. Okay. And let's see. I have the install instructions here. This is pretty straightforward. Setup, install. There it goes. And then I think it's just now installed at the command line. Yeah, it is. Okay, so I will just move a few of these things out of our way here. Oh, get out of there. Get out of there. Okay. Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm teaching class where I just don't feel like I'm being a productive member of society, right? If I don't have at least every window on the machine open. Okay, there it is. So I'm just going to listen on 587. Okay. And then kind of like we did before, it's like, let's just point away from mail.tangenttown to 10.0.7.7. Port 587 is fine. Everything else is the same. I'm just going to, instead of secure start TLS, I'm just going to say none. And then, let's see, to kev at kev.kev. Send. And I remember, I remember when I first did this, my window was sized about this way. And I was just like, darn it. I got to go back now and figure out, there's some dependency, some whatever. But then I scroll up and hello, beautiful. There we go. And in the case of the customer we were testing for, right, they had an awesome, like 70 character password or something, but it's like,
doesn't matter.
When you're able to, tweak with the config and basically turn off all the good security controls, you got it. So now I guess maybe on the kind of on the out closing this loop down, the question will come up, I'm sure, of like, okay, what are some things we'd recommend to avoid this? Because I think, I don't want to be quoted on this. I think the recommendations that Fortinet gave and that we would give is, number one, a general good security rule, right, is please, wherever possible, for the love of whatever God you pray to or don't, try to limit local admin access. Yeah. Because
that makes all of this a lot tougher. It doesn't eliminate everything. Like this attack we showed by routing the traffic to the evil server on the client by being a local admin, but you could also be doing this with, man in the middle, like poisoning, in the middle 6, ARP spoofing, any way to get the traffic to where you want it.
I'm glad you brought that up. Just to interrupt real quick. Whoops, I'm not searching for evil. I meant to search for 40 again. You bring up a great point, just because I didn't have it set up in this lab, but in our customer environment, their FortiAuthenticator was a fully qualified domain. And so we went the man in the middle 6 route and proved we could also have traffic redirect shenanigans to, point to the evil server. So it's kind of unfortunately, right, not just a one click, you can do away with all these paths. There's, if you can get that traffic redirected, you're going to get that API key, which, stinks. But, and then, I'm trying to think. The other thing to think about is there is I don't think I have it handy, but in the knowledge base articles for Fortinet, they do talk about, so like right here, let me zoom in. We used this built-in account called Maintainer to do the admin password reset. This was after we had stolen the config from the legit device and brought it over to our evil device. They have a KB about, if you are concerned about this kind of config theft, you can actually, on your healthy, good config, you can disable that maintainer account, and that should make it harder for someone to steal the config and just import it right to an evil one. So there's another consideration.
You just want to keep in mind that you're taking away your ability to do that too in a pinch.
Yeah, good call, right? Because that's when it comes time to, you work for a company that has this, and then the main IT guy leaves, right? He didn't document that password. You find this KB, and you're like, oh, cool. I'll just run the maintainer account and reset, only to find you can't. Yeah, and that leads into another like best practice, right? About having, if you're the lone wolf IT guy or gal at your company, please, for the sake of anybody who comes after you, good documentation or like a password vault or something where you're keeping all those things would be good. I kind of think that's it. Because again, I'm thinking about, once you got the local admin, you can point this anywhere you want. So that's kind of your, client side.
The one other thing you want to make sure you do is to help against those network level attacks is require a valid certificate. Don't just use self-signed certs and trust everything everywhere. It's important to use valid certs and require them.
Okay, like right there, right? Yes, that came up in conversation. So if you do have this going to whatever, forti.domain.com, that would then, that would stop that capture then, because of the API key, right? Because the client would be able to validate like, no, you're evil. You're not legit. I'm not going to communicate with you, and just stop it there.
Right.
Okay. Is that I've never done, I only hear tales from customers about how on internal networks, certificate servers and services are kind of a pain in the behind to get up and running. Would you say that's accurate, or do you have an opinion on that?
Oh yeah, it's way more annoying internally.
Okay.
It's worth doing. There's a reason, but there's a reason this checkbox by default is unchecked, because it isn't a one-click thing. You need to have people that know what they're doing set stuff up for you.
Would it I don't want to put you on the spot, but I had, when I was talking about these findings with another colleague of mine, he said what he does for some of his services like this that need, like a proper, like a Let's Encrypt cert or something, that they've got like connected via, or just like on a separate, I think they have like a VM, what is it? A vCenter, like a hosted vCenter, kind of like we do, where they've got, some VMs for various things. And they, they install, again, let's say it's forti.domain.com. They install that cert in this vCenter environment that is tied and natted to a public IP. But then in the firewall rules, they have that only the LAN side public IP can actually even hit any ports on that box. And he said that never tested with Fortinet, but with some other services, he said that's how we avoid like the upkeep and annoyance of an internal server. Is we put, you know what I mean, like external certs on stuff, but it's only really available internally. And I was like, well, that sounds like maybe just crazy enough to work.
Yeah.
You see any issues with that? Or
that's viable. It's kind of like setting up a DMZ. You've got a separate network. A little isolated from your internal stuff, but it's not completely exposed to the internet. You probably just want to make sure that your inbound firewall rules that from the internet into the appliance are limited to only allow connections from like the Let's Encrypt IP range. Otherwise, you are exposing your device to the internet.
Oh, right. For the that comes into play for like renewals, right? Like Let's Encrypt wants to be able to see your 480 and 443, right?
Right. Or even better, what you can do with Let's Encrypt, you don't have to do validation through like HTTP and HTTPS. If depending on what you use for your DNS provider, you can do DNS validation where Let's Encrypt will send you, and this is all like automated in the background. Usually you just provide your DNS server's credentials to your appliance or whatever proxy or whatever's doing the cert request. It will ask, it'll tell Let's Encrypt, I want to cert for star.7minutesecurity.com. Let's Encrypt will come back with a key, a big long just random string. Your agent will then go make a text record on your domain with that key, and Let's Encrypt will validate against that DNS record. And then after it validates, it'll delete the key. So you don't need to open any firewall ports. It sounds a little more complicated than it is in practice.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. That way, yeah, like you said, you're not just leaving that Fortinet portal just open for somebody to just try to abuse and bang away at, but then still not making like an extra chore for yourself of like, oh, that's right, I got to make sure that cert doesn't expire and I forgot and it's Monday and nobody can, get in. So yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Okay. Yeah, it's just interesting when you explained that to me. I just thought, yeah, whatever movie that is where it's like, that just might be crazy enough to work. I couldn't really find any problems with it, but yeah, I definitely want to get better too. I think I'm the guy who like read about Let's Encrypt. I install a few certs on some of our public stuff, but I haven't done the config you described to just make it more hands off for myself. So I just have like the dumbest thing. It's like every whatever amount of days, I go in, I temporarily allow the firewall open on 80 and 443. I do the renewal and then I close everything. And it's like, and every time I do that, I'm like, I'm going to block off time this week to just do more of the config you described that stuff would set and forget.
Getting good with reverse proxies like Caddy Server or Traffic, Nginx can really help with that stuff. Then you've got one thing managing all your certs and you just put that in front of whatever you want to protect.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. I know we only have a few minutes. Kevin, is there any closing thoughts on this? Otherwise, I want to really quick, since it's right at the end and people can just leave if they want to, but I want to show the other tool that you helped me with that has nothing to do with security, that has to do with a chainsaw game.
Yeah. Well, you pull that up. I'll just add a couple of like summary points for this. Like
the chainsaw one or the
no, the Fortinet one.
Oh yeah, so I don't have it. I'm sorry, I forgot. I didn't make it public, so I'll have to do that after we
and
then put the URL up.
That's okay. Yeah, no, but the takeaways I think for people from this demo, if you're like an IT manager, just keep in mind, just because you bought a big expensive appliance from a known vendor and thrown it on the network, it doesn't necessarily mean you just made your network more secure. You need to give your guys the time and resources to really properly learn the device and install it the right way. Otherwise, you might have made your network less secure rather than more secure.
Yeah.
And for the IT guys setting things up like this, keep the security basics in mind. Require proper SSL, no local admin, that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. It was such I hope we get more projects like that. Like I'm not trying to toot our own horns, right? But I think in a case like this, customer got a lot of value out of it, right? Because they're IT people, super razor sharp, right? They had all the like blocks in place. Everything was like, functionally working together, but then just to have us come in and we're solely focused with just those security eyes, right? Of like, this control is annoying. How do I skirt around it? And that's something I know you and I have had conversations about, is like, you wonder sometimes if these other companies that put out, like you said, big products, big services, you just wonder, like, did they ever have somebody like just independently go, let me try to find all the workarounds here or all the security problems? So
sysadmins generally want to make things work. But the world is evolving to not just making things work. You also have to really dial in the security, while you're standing things up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Thanks so much again for all your help with not only that project, but the demo and the server. That's awesome. I'll get that by the time the show notes come up for tomorrow's episode. I'll have the link to the public FortiAuthenticator server so people can grab it. And just in like the couple minutes we have left, I just want to, everybody can leave. Listen, if you're not a fan of video games and don't play Texas Chainsaw Massacre on the PC, just have a good evening, have a good afternoon. You can leave, but I just want to feature one other thing that was just released yesterday that Kevin gave me a lot of help in, because I'm a complete noob with Python, but this was a fun way and an excuse to learn a little bit more of it, rather than just go through those exercises, right? Where it's like, simulate that you have a grocery cart and you're going to add 2 apples to it. And then you are going to ask the cart, how many apples do you have, right? Like, I mean, that's cool. I'm not dogging on that, but like for me, that got old real fast. So let me, hold on a second. Is my wife watching? She says, Brian, thank you so much for making it easier for blind. I'm going to put that up actually while I load it's from my wife. Good Lord. Let's see.
I've never played this game before. I'll have to jump on sometime.
Yeah. Just, don't have the kids around. Okay, here we go. I'll just show this to you real quick. So, okay, so quick background on this. This is, folks, this is not for your kids. Okay, this is a PC game called Texas Chainsaw Massacre. As you might imagine, it's not a Disney film. It's not a Disney movie. There's these rounds of 3 killers versus 4 survivors. Survivors are trying to get out of the basement, escape the compound, and escape with their lives. The family or the killers are trying to stop that. This game, which it came out this summer, I've had a lot of fun playing with it, but it is a heated community and they are very divided about things. So what happens when you get into a lobby and you're match made with, your 3 family and your 4 victims, people lobby dodge. And basically that means they leave the lobby if they don't get the character they want. They leave the lobby if, Kevin picked this one survivor that I think makes the game unfair. I bail, right? So sometimes you sit at the flippin' lobby matchmaking screen for 10, 15 minutes, and eventually it'll just time out and be like, sorry, you didn't get placed in a match. So you're staring at the screen, your eyeballs are drying out, and you never get into a match. And you have to manually press some keys to get back in the lobby queue and wait again, and it all starts over. So I started talking with Kevin and a few other people about like, how could I like script this so that it was more set and forget? So in other words, could I start my Texas Chainsaw game, start a script, and have the script watch what's happening on my Texas Chainsaw game, and then push keys and do whatever needs to be necessary to keep getting me back in that stinking lobby queue. And so this script is built for that. And Kevin introduced me to, do you call it a Python library? PyAuto GUI, is that?
Yeah, it's technically it's a module, but yeah, I think everyone just calls them libraries.
Okay, but yeah, essentially what it does is it takes pictures regularly of what's happening on the screen, and then you can script it to say, okay, do you see the following image in that big screenshot image? If so, oh, I can tell you're at the title screen of the game. I'm going to push E to continue. Or, oh, do you see, this image of this mailbox? Oh, you must be at the place where you pick whether you want to play family or victim. I will push up or down arrow the right amount of times, select that for you. And then once you're in a lobby, it actually sends you a webhook or an email to say, glory be, you're actually about to play the game. But what I'm working on for the 1.1 version is even to go one step further, which would be, if you get into a match and you lock in on one of your preferred characters, it would automatically ready you up. And then essentially once you're like 20 seconds away from the match to truly start, right? Nobody's lobby dodged. I have it send you one more webhook. So as my wife said, Kevin, you made it easier for me to play games because I run the game, I run the script, and then I just go, I put a load of dishes in, I talk to the kids, you know what I mean? I do whatever I want. And then all of a sudden, bzz, oh, hold on, guys. I look at my phone. I'm like, looks like I'm player Leland and my game's going to start in about 20 seconds. So I got to go. And I walk right over here and it's like, it's starting. And it's like the dorkiest thing ever, right? Probably nobody will see this besides me. I pray that like one other person uses this and is like, oh, thank you. But at the same time, they have a big patch coming out in like 60 days, and maybe they'll fix all the things that make people lobby dodge, and this will be obsolete. But it's been super fun excuse, like I said, to learn Python. So thank you, Kevin, for fielding what is probably the equivalent of a white belt asking a ninja master, how to make a fist and where to hold the thumb.
Yeah. Next month, you'll be writing like an aimbot for the program. You won't even be playing anymore.
Right. Well, that's it. I am a little bit, I told a couple people on like the Reddit boards about it, and they're just like, oh, we're going to get that taken down. That's a cheat. There's no cheating. It's not like I'm manipulating DLLs and stuff, right? Like it's
not even playing. How can it be cheating?
Yeah. I mean, that would be hilarious if like the developers saw this and are just like, take down notice or whatever you do. I don't know if you can do that on GitHub, but it'd be kind of funny if it actually hit the right or wrong audience and it got people all foaming at the mouth, either excited or angry about it. But yeah, that's it. So tell, if you know anybody who plays this game, tell them to check it out. And, I mean, Kevin, I try to make it really official. I mean, I've got all these issues. They're all from me. But these are things that I want in the next version. So, I'll joke with Kevin sometimes when he helps me with a Python thing, and then I figure it out. I'm like, I'm just going to look and see if Google has any senior developer jobs open, because I think I pretty much got this. Like I'm kind of good to go and maybe ready for the next phase of my career where I leave security and get into development. But then
even basic development skills help so much with security, in my experience.
Yeah, it's been really cool. I mean, it is a lot of just if else loops, but to troubleshoot that when it gets to be more advanced. I mean, it's fun because it's like the 1.0 version that's up now, right? It works, but it just keeps looping. So now I'm going like, ooh, how do I make it so when my match starts, the script just takes a break, so that, I mean, it's probably not wasting too much processor and memory taking those screenshots, but I kind of like the idea that it just isn't doing anything that might lag the game a little bit or something. So it's fun now just to have that kind of bug of like, oh, here's another little tweak that would make it even cooler. So, yeah, anyway, thanks a bunch for everything. And let's see, do we have any questions? We just have my wife harassing me. Got a few people saying hello, so I think we're good. And yeah, like Tim says, smarter, not harder. There we go. And it drives my older son, Cameron. He plays a little bit on Xbox side. So I'm just like the biggest dork in the world. I come out of the office like, oh, still waiting like a regular person for lobbies to start? Not me. I'm going to go downstairs and, whatever, do whatever I want with my life for a few minutes.
Got to get him an Xbox developer account.
Yeah. I was, I was gonna say, okay. I'll have to have a separate conversation with you about that, because he asked if there was some way to run a similar thing, and I was like, I don't know if that'd be doable.
I have no idea.
Okay. Next, he'll have it on the living room floor, taking it apart with screws, like trying to mod it or something, whatever they do. But awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate it. And let's see, Kevin, why don't you just hang on the line for one moment? I'll send everybody out, and have a great rest of your day and week, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks again, Brian.
Thanks.
You've been watching or listening to 7 Minute Security, a weekly podcast focused on pen testing, blue teaming, and building a career in security. For more episodes like this, visit 7ms.us. And for information about our consulting services, visit 7minsec.com.